So really give some thought putting together those swatches of the different materials that you're going to be working with, whether it's leathers or fabrics, whether it's screen printing things or actually going for things that are embroidered. The practical aspects in terms of protectiveness. You know, this guy's in chainmail. Does it need to be real chain? Can it be plastic chain? Can it be aluminium chain? There are so many different variables that are out there. Excuse me. Look at the design itself, where it's going to be worn, how it's going to be used, and then adjust your materials accordingly. It's all very well looking absolutely amazing and having the absolute, you know, best level of materials and all the rest of it, and then you turn up to the event and it's 100 degrees and you pass out, just because you should have considered that it was probably going to be 100 degrees and how could you cool down? You know, they're little details, but they make such a difference in the final project. It's unbelievable, and especially it'll make a massive difference to your enjoyment of the day, because there's nothing worse than dehydration and ending up in a first aider tent because you got too hot, or, as is more likely in the UK, hypothermic and you got too cold or you got too wet. You know, it can go either way. Looking at preferences of material. Do you have a preference? You know, there are so many different leathers to work with, so many different variations of leathers to work with, and that's without even starting to look at things like vegan-friendly materials, which are still a massive challenge that I'm still pursuing to find a solution. Whether or not you want to work with latexes, there are lots of elements that you can add to armors and costumes that involve other skill sets, molding, sculpting, casting, all of these things. You know, by thinking about how something could be incorporated and thinking about the brief, going through that brief in detail, that's when you're going to identify whether or not a particular skill set is going to be needed, whether or not particular material is going to be needed. And most suppliers of materials, you know, they won't have a problem. They'll have a scrap of something that they can send you a little swatch. Later on in the course, I'll be taking you all to one of my major suppliers in the UK that I've used for 20 plus years, who has colossal volumes of leathers and fake leathers and of every variant that you can possibly imagine. There is so much out there to choose from. If you get a chance, go and see these things firsthand. If you don't, find suppliers, get yourself swatches. It's worth paying for in the first instance, just so that you've got something to refer to for the future. And it doesn't have to be a whole pile of, just because somebody's got 100 different types. By knowing your brief and having an idea of that design, how it's going to be used, where it's going to be used, what it's going to be used for, you can narrow that choice down and get yourself together a good selection of examples.